I love dishes that have got a really thick, rich sauce, and the lamb madras is just one of those. I'm going to show you how to put together your own madras powder, which is going to be really fresh, really zingy, because you're going to be using all your own fresh whole spices. It's all about adding a little bit of tang with some tamarind and just marinating that meat so all the flavours infuse into that. So what we're going to do is put that madras powder together, and what you need is a coffee grinder and your spices. So we're going to start with coriander. So coriander seeds, what they do is give a really lovely, almost tangy freshness. Then we're going to add some fenugreek seeds, and these don't tend to be used an awful lot in Western cooking, but what they do is give a sort of a bitterness to your dish. We're also going to use some white poppy seeds. This is very common in Indian cooking. So we're going to put in just 2 teaspoons of that. We're then going to add some brown mustard seeds for that, almost that pungency. So I'm going to pop in a teaspoon of that. And then we're going to add some cumin seeds. So cumin seeds give a real lovely earthiness. So each of these spices has their, that little something something that it gives to the sauce. We're going to add some peppercorns for a little bit of bite. So a teaspoon of that. And then we're going to add in some fennel seeds. And fennel seeds give a lovely, very gentle aniseed undertone. So just half a teaspoon of those. We're also going to add some cassia bark. So cassia bark gives a slight sweetness, but a real earthiness, probably about a 7 centimetre piece. But just break that up and just put that straight into your coffee grinder. And then the last thing we're going to add is some cloves, and we're probably going to put about 5 of those in. There we go. And what we want to do is we just want to blitz that to a really nice powder. Some people like to put their turmeric and chilli in at this stage as well. I don't. I'll blitz this up and I'll add that later, just because the turmeric turns everything bright orange. So I'm going to give that a blitz. There we go. So we end up with a fairly coarse powder, which I'm just going to pop into here. And what's quite striking about it is the aromatics. It's really, really fragrant. It's so much nicer than the stuff that you can buy in the supermarket. It's got a really fresh pungency to it. So that's what we're looking for, almost like that lovely powder. And then into that, we're going to add our turmeric. So turmeric, probably about 2 tablespoons. And that's really for colour, but also has some very gentle sort of undertones. And then we're going to put in some chilli powder as well. So with a madras, it's a spicy dish, it's a dry dish, it's spicy and it's tangy. So you can be as heavy-handed with the chili powder as you like. If you prefer slightly more mild, then just lay off the chili a little bit. But you mix that up and that's starting to look like the right colour now. So I'm just going to add a little bit more chili powder, and I'm going to put a touch more turmeric in just to get the right colour. So there you go, we've got all of our spices in there, all blended, all beautiful. You can smell the fragrances coming off there. And this is what's really exciting about Indian food. It's the use of all of these wonderful spices. You're never going to get anything that beautiful and that fragrant out of a packet. So as I always say, just blend your own spices, and it's really easy to do. That took me 2 minutes, if that. So go on, give it a go. I'm going to put the madras powder into the lamb now to start the marinating process. Probably want to put in about 2 tablespoons just to coat all the meat and get those lovely spices and those lovely flavours actually infusing into the meat. I'm going to use my hands and I'm going to start to just coat all of that meat with the lovely spices. It smells really good. It looks really good as well. Ideally, I sort of leave it to marinate for about an hour, but if you've got less time than that, then by all means just do it for as long as you can. But as with marinating, the longer the better. Just make sure all of your meat is all coated with that lovely powder. If you haven't got enough in there, just put a little bit more in. The rest of your powder can just be put into a jar, seal it and leave it for the next time you want to use it, because you don't want to waste that stuff. It's really good. So once your meat has been coated and marinated, I'm just going to pop that to one side, and then I'm going to show you how to make the sauce. Just wash my hands, let's get on with the sauce. So I'm heating up my pan, and the first thing I'm going to do is heat up a little bit of oil. I tend to just use rapeseed oil, but any vegetable oil is fine. So probably just about a tablespoon, maybe a little bit less. And the first thing we're going to do is put in some mustard seeds. Now, whenever you use mustard seeds like this, just be very careful, because as soon as they hit the heat, they start to pop, and they do hurt when they hit your hand. So a teaspoon of mustard seeds. You can hear them sizzling away. In a minute, they're going to start to pop, and just as they pop, we're going to put in some curry leaves. Curry leaves give a wonderful sort of Indian aromatic, if you like, very much used in South Indian cooking, which is why we use it in this dish. It's just starting to pop now, so I'm just going to put in a handful of those, and that's when it really starts to sizzle. So give that a little stir, and as with any whole spices, as soon as you can smell them, as soon as you get that aromatic and the fragrance coming through, you go in with your next ingredient. So I'm going to pop in my onions, which I've chopped up really finely. I'm going to give that a stir just to coat with the oil. As with most Indian dishes, your onions are really, really key, and how you cook your onions is really key to this dish. With any dish where you want a really deep, rich sauce, it's really important that you cook your onions down until they're a very, very dark caramelised brown colour. That will give the depth of flavour to the sauce, but also it will give you that lovely colour, the dark curry colour, if you like, that you're looking for. So your onions are very important. What you don't want to end up with is a sauce where you've got floating bits of onion. You want all of it to come together, so you've got a really rich masala base, and then that's where you're going to get your intensity and your flavour from. The onion's been cooking for about 15 minutes, and you can see that it's got that lovely dark caramelised brown colour. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add my ginger and my garlic, which I've got ready here. So probably about 3 cloves of garlic, which I've finely chopped up, which I'm going to pop into there. And some ginger that I've grated, so I'm going to put that in as well. I'm also going to add some green chillies, because a Madras is supposed to be that fiery, hot flavour. So I'm just going to chop up some green chillies. I'm probably just going to use one for now. And then I'll be adding some chilli powder in later as well, just for a little bit more fire. I don't bother taking the seeds out. If I don't want as much heat, I'll just use half a chilli instead. So I'm going to pop that in. I'm going to give that a stir. It's really important now that you just keep an eye on it, because there is a tendency for the ginger, because it's very fibrous, to stick to the bottom of the pan. So just keep an eye on it, and if it does tend to stick to the pan, just add a little splash of water. So I've got some water ready here, and if I need to, I'll pop that in. I'm just going to turn the heat up a little bit as well. So I'm going to leave that to cook for about 5 or 6 minutes until the garlic's cooked down and the ginger and everything has cooked down. But just as I said, keep an eye on it. I'm just going to add a splash of water. What that will do is lift everything off the bottom of the pan and just help to bring that masala base together. As the onions start to brown and the ginger and garlic all start to melt into the onions, and they start to get this lovely dark brown colour, you're then ready to add your tomatoes. I always use plum tomatoes just because they give a much thicker, much richer gravy. So I'm just going to pop in a whole tin, and by all means use whichever brand you like. Just pour that in and give that a stir through. what you want to do is break down those tomatoes. So just using your spoon, just give them a bash. And what you'll hear is that the pan cools down immediately. So just turn it up slightly and just start to get a little bit of heat to it. Keep stirring, break down those tomatoes. It won't take very, very long. So, you know, we can keep that cooking. The next thing we need to do is add the tamarind. So tamarind is one of the key ingredients for a madras. And what tamarind does is it gives it that zinginess. It gives it that fruity, zingy flavour. And you can buy tamarind in lots of different ways. You can buy it as a paste, you can buy it as a block like this. I always tend to go for the block. And what you need to do when you have a block like this is just rehydrate it in hot water. So I've got one here that I've put into some boiling water and just left for about 10 minutes or so, and all you want is just the liquid, and that's that zingy flavour that you're looking for. So I'm just going to pour that in as well. Just be careful not to get any of the stones or any of the pulpy bits in, because that's not going to be very nice at all. So just pour that in. If you're not very confident doing that, just sieve it through. There we go. Just going to give that a stir. Tamarind is a fruit that grows on a tree native to India, and they're just these pods that hang off the trees. They look pretty funky, and it's used an awful lot in Thai cooking as well, but it's just to give that fruity, zingy flavour. There we go. So as you can see, the tomatoes are starting to break down. The tamarind is just bringing all of that sauce together, and the onions and the garlic and all of those lovely flavours are in there. It's smelling really good. All I want to make sure is that all of my tomatoes are properly crushed down. They've started to cook through, so you're losing the raw acidity. So we're going to keep cooking that probably for another couple of minutes, just until the sauce thickens and it starts to get that lovely glisten over it. And then we're just going to add our marinated meat straight into it. And as soon as you do that, you'll get this wonderful aromatic of all of those spices hitting that heat. And that's when you'll start to get a bit excited, because you'll know that that's your madras cooking. I'm just going to go and get my lamb, which has been marinating now. And we're going to get cooking with that. There we go. So there's the lamb. It's been marinating now for just under an hour actually, but it's looking really lovely. One thing I forgot to do when I was putting my marinade together, and it happens to all of us, I forgot to season my lamb, which is a little bit silly, but I'm just going to put some salt in now. I'm going to give that a little stir. So just a teaspoon of salt. I'm just going to use my spoon. I'll give that a stir through. Okay, so the sauce is looking great now. It's all come together. You haven't got any floating bits of onion. It's all melted together. All those onions and tomatoes have all melted into to create that lovely paste. So I'm going to put in my marinated lamb. There we go. And I'm not going to lose any of that lovely madras powder. I'm going to put that in as well. What you want to do is just stir and coat all of that together, and just get all of the sauce and the spices all coming together. And you can see, I wish you could smell it, but you can see that it's really starting to thicken up and coming together. There we go. Now, if you want to, you can add a little bit extra chilli powder for heat. So I'm going to put just a little touch more chilli powder in. And obviously this is completely up to you, depending on how you like to eat it. If you like it spicy, add more. You can always taste it later on, and if you want a little bit more of a kick, then add a little bit later. But we'll put that chilli in. We're going to give that a stir, and then this bit is really important. What most people would probably do now is put bucket loads of water in there and leave it to boil away. It's really important now at this stage to turn your heat down to the lowest setting, place your lid on the pan and just leave it to cook. And I promise you, it won't catch the bottom, it won't burn, it won't do anything like that. What you'll find is all the gravy and all of the juices from the meat will come out, and you'll create a really thick, rich sauce, and that will come from the meat itself, and that's where you get that depth and that richness of flavour. So trust me, put your lid on, turn it right down, and we're going to leave that to cook for about between half an hour to an hour, but I'm going to keep coming back every now and again and give it a little stir just to check how it's doing. My tangy, fiery Madras has been cooking for about an hour now, so I'm just going to have a look at it, and it looks really delicious. So that's what we want, that lovely dark colour. I'm just going to turn that off. I've been checking it every now and again, and I've been adding a little bit of water. So if you want a little bit more of a gravy, then by all means just add some hot water in at the end and stir that through, let it cook through for a couple of minutes, and that's it, you're done. So give that a stir, and I'm just going to serve that up. And I like to serve this up either with just some plain rice, because there's so much flavour in there that you actually don't need to add anything else. It's just some plain boiled rice, or just a really nice fluffy roti or naan. But there you go, delicious, tangy, fiery, hot lamb Madras.